and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kim and today I want to talk about friendship. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have no microphone because I'm still trying to figure out the freaking audio for this channel. But anyway, this is probably the most ridiculous video that I've come up with yet. I'm working on a really big series for Halloween Horror Nights right now, so I just needed a couple of filler videos, and this one seemed like the obvious choice. So today, as you can tell by the title, I am going to talk about which icons from Halloween Horror Nights would be best friends, or frenemies really, if they were paired together. There are a total of 16 official original icons from Halloween Horror Nights, so that makes a perfect set of 8. This video will be in 2 parts. Part 1, I will talk about the icons, their personality, a little bit of their backstory, and then in Part 2, I'll pair them up. Parts will be time-stamped below, so if you don't need an icon refresher, feel free to skip ahead, but don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. What makes an icon? Who are the icons? And what are all of their personalities? All of these questions and more will be answered in this section of the video. Wow. So what makes a Halloween Horror Nights icon? That is hotly debated, but in my humble opinion, an icon is the main character of that year's event. Sometimes an icon is more present, more actively involved in the overall story. They've often been showed on merch and welcome guests during open ceremonies. The icons have a name and a backstory, and most of the time they are featured in either a house or in a scare zone to help tell their story. There have been a lot of icons over the years. The earlier years featured the more non-original icons such as the Crypt Keeper, Chucky, and Beetlejuice. Those were considered the event icons in the earlier years. But then in the year 2000, the 10-year anniversary of the event, Halloween Horror Nights Creative came up with their very first original character, and the rest was history. Now, as I mentioned, the icon conversation is hotly debated. Which named characters get to be an icon and which fall by the wayside? That is probably a conversation for another day and perhaps another channel, because personally I don't really care. But I don't want anybody's favorite character getting ignored either, so let me quickly list some of the honorable mentions before we talk about the official icons. So last year in 2025 we had Sergio Navarro, and he was the creator of the El Artista House. He was seen as a photo op character in Central Park, but his voice was also heard narrating the event throughout the park. Does that make you an event icon? I don't know. There's certainly a case to be made for it, but only time will tell. Another original honorary mention is Bone. Now, Bone was a skeleton character on stilts in one of the scare zones during HHN 27. I did not know that this guy was considered an icon until I was reading through the HHN wiki. I don't know his backstory, but I just assumed he was a skeleton guy on stilts. Personally, I don't place Bones' importance over any other standout scare zone actor. There was a big bird on stilts in the 2025 opening scare zone, so does that make the bird an icon? I don't think so. The last honorary icon is Nathaniel Crow. Now, he was a scrapped icon, actually, meaning that he never had a chance to become more than the little bit of backstory that we got. Any plans for him to be in a house or a scare zone or on any merch or even part of a larger story was tossed out before it even could begin. Eddie Schmidt and Cindy Kane are 2 other examples of scrapped icons where their year got messed up for one reason or another. The difference is both Eddie and Cindy had a redemption years where their stories got to play out in houses and they were featured in icon anniversary scare zones. Nathaniel has none. He was supposed to be the icon of 2008, but something shifted along the way, and the icon for that year became Bloody Mary. Maybe one day he'll get his chance in the sun. So now we're going to move on and talk about the official original Halloween Horror Nights icons. I don't want to dig too deeply into their backstory as I'd like this video to be relatively short, but in this section I'll talk a little bit about their history and more importantly their personality. That way you have a foundation for my explanations in part 2. So I'll just start at the very beginning in 2000 with the very first original icon, Jack the Clown, aka Jack Schmidt. Jack was a clown who performed in Oddfellows Circus, and thus he has a very big personality. Obviously, as a performer, everything has to be big. He has to have a loud, deep voice like a carnival barker. He's a real showman with his kills, too. He's sneaky, he's conniving, he's really like a little trickster. He likes to be the center of attention. He's very snarky, and he's very quick-witted to anyone who tries to stand up to him. He's just a silly, goofy little maniac clown. And the one thing about Jack is he is always going to come back. No matter how many times he's killed or cursed or banished, Jack will return in a few years to corrupt and kill the youth of the day. He's kind of a perfect horror icon like that. Jack is a lot of people's favorite icon. He was featured at every HHN event around the world. He really is the people's princess. So moving on, the next icon is from 2001, and that was meant to be Eddie Schmidt. Now, Eddie Schmidt is actually Jack's brother, but they didn't really get along. Originally, Eddie was meant to arrive and kill Jack, thus ending his reign of terror and becoming the next hot new bombshell icon. But then something crazy happened in September of 2001. Can anybody guess? Yes, that's right, 9/11 happened, and let's just say Halloween Horror Nights had to backpedal hard on the violence, blood, and gore. So for 2001, Jack came back to cause more chaos, and Eddie was sidelined until he got his own house called Run, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Now, Eddie is a lover of 80s horror movies, specifically the slasher genre, hence the chainsaw as a weapon of choice. He was born in the Shady Brook home for the criminally insane. In his youth, he set up a haunted house in his trailer park home, but the local kids and set it on fire while Eddie was inside. He wears a mask to hide the severe burns on his face. Moving on to 2002, Universal was meant to have an icon called Cindy. Cindy was a little girl, and she was taking over islands of adventure, and each island was going to represent her playthings. Unfortunately, that same year, there were a couple of child abductions in the area, and Universal decided to scrap the potentially offensive icon for now. Cindy would return in 2010 as the icon of her own house, and like Eddie, has been since featured in the anniversary icon houses and scare zones. That being said, Cindy was a troubled little girl brought back from the dead by her father, who we'll get into in just a moment, and when he returned to life, she came with pyrokinetic powers. She used those powers to burn down the orphanage that she lived in with the staff and children still inside. Cindy is a creepy little child. I don't know what else to tell you. She does not play well with others, she's an uncontrollable little girl, and she probably needs a little bit of discipline. It doesn't help that her father is the caretaker. Now, the caretaker is an icon that replaced Cindy in 2002 when Creative decided that they didn't want to go in the child direction. His name is Albert Kane, and he is in fact Cindy's father. He's just a psychopath. He was a surgeon once upon a time, and then he moved to take care of the Shady Oak Cemetery. But the guy was a weirdo. He was obsessed with experimentation. He wanted to know about the human soul and human suffering, so he would collect bodies to do experiments. Soon, dead bodies weren't enough, though, and he began plucking up homeless population from Cary, Ohio instead. The worst part was the corpse decorations. He used to host parties for his friends and families, and he would take the bodies of the people that he collected and decorate his house with them. Poor Cindy never stood a chance at a normal life. So the caretaker, kind of a creep, but he's charming enough to lure in the homeless people to his house to become experimented on. He's quiet, contemplative, he's calculated, and apparently he likes to party. He likes to party with his creepy little family. That's the character. In 2003, we saw one of my favorite icons, the director. His name is also Paolo Ravinsky. Imagine the worst guy in your intro to film class. That's him. This guy has over 10,000 popular movies reviewed on his Letterboxd, no doubt, and he probably gave Jaws half a star rating because it just didn't live up to its gory potential. All that to say, he is very pretentious, a real tortured artist type. He's called the director because he directs movies, torture films, where the victim is real. He truly believes he's God's gift to man, and his art is his gift to man. He has to create and share his life's work, and to me, that's just obnoxious. In 2005, we saw 2 icons. This was because Universal Creative came up with an icon deemed too complex for the regular Halloween Horror Nights guest to understand. So while they insisted on keeping the original icon, they added a second icon as a sort of explainer. Now, the first icon was the Terra Queen, who rules the fantasy world of Terra Cruentis with an iron fist. She cannot speak. Instead, she hisses and growls and shrieks. She's had an interpreter who stays at her side to make sure that her devout minions understood what her orders are. Also has a sick bike that she rides around on. As you can imagine, Universal thought the Terra Cruentis storyline was going to be a little too complex for the general audience, so they added the storyteller as well. The storyteller, aka Elizabeth Strict, is a creepy old lady who reads bedtime stories to her victims, who are usually strewn out on beds being tortured in one way or another. She was the one who brought people from our world into Terra Cruentis. Elizabeth is quiet and keeps to herself, except when she's entertaining victims. In 2008, that is the next time you would see an original character, but this one was a little bit different because she's not an entirely original character, just her backstory is original. Of course, I am talking about the one and only Bloody Mary. Yes, that Bloody Mary. You say her name 3 times in a mirror and she shows up to kill you. Mary Agana was a psychiatrist and she was cursed. She received her grandmother's music box and it makes her go crazy, and then she starts taking her craziness out on her patients. HHN in 2008 has a lot of backstory, and don't worry, I will get into it in a future video. But yes, Mary was a deeply troubled woman who had known that she wanted to cure her patients and thought the best course of action to save a bunch of crazy people is to do exposure therapy, making them face their fears. She took a lot of notes. In 2009, we met the Usher, aka Julian Browning, a 1920s movie theater aficionado. The Usher's a little bit silly, but he's also the kind of quiet, creepy silly. He'll speak very slowly and very ominously, like at any moment he could snap. If you find yourself in the theater where he works and you're talking a little too loud, or you snuck in without tickets, you can believe that he is going to take you out. He really loves the movies. He respects the theater, and he'll protect the integrity of both by any means necessary. 2010 was the 20th anniversary of Halloween Horror Nights. As a big anniversary year, Halloween Horror Nights had to go bigger and better with their icon, and thus we got Fear itself, aka Adaru, the entity that had been controlling the event thus far. He is the one who controlled all of the icons that came before him. Fear lived in a lantern, trapped for a very long time, and once the curse was broken, he was released from his prison and free to do whatever he wanted. And what he wanted to do was unleash his minions on the people who kept him locked up for so long, and anyone who might stand to put him back. 2021 was Lady Luck's year, and she's kind of an underrated icon. Because she didn't get her own house, fans found her presence at the event was kind of lacking, but she was infused throughout the houses as the woman who giveth and taketh away a man's luck. She also had her own scare zone. She's another one of my favorite icons. She's a demon succubus who lures people to their death using luck as her weapon, and hopefully Lady Luck is on your side. She is a seductress, beautiful until she isn't. She's the perfect picture of a Vegas showgirl in her long gowns and pearly white smile. She sort of reminds me of Poison Ivy from Batman, which leads me perfectly into the next icon who didn't appear until 2016, and her name was Chance. Chance reminds me a lot of Harley Quinn from Batman. Chance was Jack the Clown's sidekick at his Carnival of Carnage. She was originally introduced in 2015 and then returned for her own year the next year. Chance is a crazy, kooky clown lady. She's high energy, manic. She's always cackling and joking, and most importantly, she's always killing. She's got the clown makeup and the pigtails and the tutu and all of the vengeance of 1,000 men. I'm glad she got her own year. A chance, pun intended, to step out of Jack's shadow and take second stage. She's got the big personality for it after all. In 2022, we got our next icon, the Pumpkin Lord, and he is exactly that, a giant pumpkin man. He does wicked things. He comes from the house appropriately named Wicked Growth, and then he got to be his own thing when fans loved him. How nice. Each year he grows more and more through tricking people into celebrating Halloween. The more people cheer him, the more powerful he grows, and he has some pretty powerful, loyal followers. In 2023, we got, in my humble opinion, one of the best icons of HHN, Dr. Oddfellow. Now, he was technically introduced all the way back in 2000 when Jack first came around, as Jack did work at Oddfellow Circus, and he was the man who put Jack away the first time. However, in 2023, he got the full story treatment. A ringmaster with his fur coat and big top hat and his cane full of mysterious powers. Like Jack, Dr. Oddfellow is a showman, but his personality is far more controlled and measured and pointed. He is the master of ceremonies. He has to ensure that everyone has a grand old time. So yes, his personality is larger than life. He's very confident, very cocky, and quite full of himself. He knows his power and he's not afraid to wield it. He's been around for a very long time. He's also an astrology girly. He got his powers from the zodiac realm, so you know he's all about reading your horoscope. I just love him. And finally, in 2024, we got our last two new icons so far. For the 33rd year, we got sisters Sinister and Surreal. The fear from HHN all of these years enabled them to come and rain terror upon the event. Sinister was the manifestation of everything violent and bloody and gory in horror. She had her torture fair, where unsuspecting Renfest attendees got more than they bargained for. And on the other side of the coin was Surreal, the manifestation of things unexplained, metaphysical, and otherworldly. She and her demon queens thrive on the tormented psyches of the people who dare to pass through her realm. So, now that we have all of the icons laid out, let's pair them together. Starting with arguably the star of the whole show, the original icon, the larger-than-life personality, Jack the Clown. Now, Jack is a total showman, right? Dying or killing to be front and center. You'd think that I'd want to pair him with someone more quiet, timid, someone who doesn't want to steal the spotlight from him. Personally, I think Jack would go along just well with the Pumpkin Lord. Hear me out. The Pumpkin Lord and Jack are pretty similar. They both have their quips, their kind of dirty humor, they love chaos. They'd be like the Bash Brothers. I think the Pumpkin Lord would understand his place as number 2 to Jack's number 1, and I think he'd take it in stride. Because even if he's not as good as Jack, he's still better than everyone else. You cannot convince me that these two wouldn't have a grand night out killing youths. I mean, think of the demographic overlap between a carnival and a pumpkin patch. Even their victims are similar. Yes, I think Jack and the Pumpkin Lord would be besties, and that's that on that. Next up is Eddie Schmidt, the 80s horror fan. I think he would be best friends with none other than the Usher. Not only do they seem to be around the same age, but I think that they'd have similar hobbies. Eddie loves watching movies, and the Usher loves protecting the sanctity of the place where movies are shown. They both have a fun Friday night at the theater, enjoying movies and taking out anyone who dared to disturb their experience. Eddie might have to convince the Usher to play some more modern movies, though. I feel like the Usher's tastes are probably like 1920s and 30s Universal horror. But the minute that Eddie introduces the Usher to Devil Dogs or Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell, Blood and Chum, I think he'd change his tune. The next pairing seems a little too obvious, but the more I thought about it, the more it just makes sense. And I'm talking about Cindy Kane and the Storyteller. Hello, a little girl and a grandma. What more can I say? They're both in this unique situations of being on opposite ends of the age spectrum. I think it'd be a little bit weird to pair Cindy up with like Jack or Storyteller with Oddfellow. I don't think they would have anything in common. On the contrary, Cindy and the Storyteller both have early bedtimes. I'm sure they both rise early. The storyteller needs someone to tell her stories to, and Cindy needs a maternal, older figure to help show her, guide her, how to use her powers for evil. Ensure the most damage is inflicted. I think that's the perfect pairing, and that's why I think that they would be besties. The next best friend duo are the Terror Queen and Fear itself. I think they might be a little bit more frenemies situation due to both of their desires to rule, but I think once they did get on the same page and realize that they have ultimately the same goal, fear and control, they'd be able to team up and become the ultimate power duo. The rest of us would be pretty screwed. Now, there are a pair of icons already, Sinister and Surreal, and you'd think that I'd definitely say they are best friends, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Especially not when there are, who I believe, better options for each of them. For Sinister, I think she and the Caretaker would get along very well. Both of them are brutal, violent, bloody, gory people. The Caretaker was arrested on crimes of taking dead bodies and creating party decorations in his mansion with them. Sinister had her own torture fair where she made plenty of dead bodies herself. There is no reason why these two maniacs can't work together to create the most violence the world has ever seen. As for Surreal, I think she and Dr. Oddfellow would get along really well. See, Oddfellow is a sucker for everything spiritual and occult and astrological. And Surreal is, well, everything terrifying and surreal. I think with Oddfellow being powered by the Zodiac realm, he and Surreal would get along very well. Surreal could come up with some of the craziest trouble to get them into, and Dr. Oddfellow would have the power to make those surrealities come true. Plus, I think Oddfellow is a bit of a ladies' man. I think he'd fit right in with the rest of the demon queens that Surreal hangs out with. The next pairing I think would be great friends are the Director and Bloody Mary. Now hear me out. The Director is very pretentious. He's very up his own ass. He is a tortured artist who tortures for his art. He's brooding and dark in a very self-serious way. I truly believe that Dr. Mary Agana would love that man. I think she'd eat it up. She herself was very brooding and dark and self-serious. I think these two would get together and tell each other horror stories from their day. Mary often tortured her patients by forcing them to face their fears, and what better way to expose them than to make them star in one of the director's snuff films? It's a 2-for-1 special. I swear that these two are going to open mic poetry nights. They are bumming out the whole room with their sad words, and then they're talking shit in the back row about the other equally terrible poets. And finally, the most fun duo of them all, I saved the best for last. I think these two would be the best friends out of all of them. Probably the least frenemies and most authentically, hilariously best friends would be Lady Luck and Chance. Earlier in the video, I said Chance is like Harley Quinn and Lady Luck is a little bit like Poison Ivy. Well, are you seeing the vision now? Chance is the loud, rambunctious troublemaker, while Lady Luck is cool and collected. They love to go out drinking and dancing, and while they're out, they like to make the lives of the creeps that hit on them even worse. While Lady Luck has that whole unlucky power thing, Chance has good old-fashioned violence, and I think that their taste in men is different enough that they'd always have plenty of sacrifices to play with. Actual icons. And that's it. Short and sweet and to the point, right? What do you think? Do you agree with my pairings? Would you change anything? Who would you be best friends with? Let me know in the comments below. We are just about to head into August pretty soon, which means, at least here in Orlando, we are heading straight into spooky season. Like I said before, I'm working hard on a new HHN deep dive series, and I'm hoping to get the first couple of episodes out in the next few weeks. It's going to be a little bit different, informational, but with a fictional narrative twist. I'm creating a character and everything, so I hope y'all like it. If you liked this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more, because the Halloween season is just getting started, baby. That's all for now, though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the fog. Bye!